My name is Brian Boyle. I'm 28 years old and I'm a healthcare advocate and also a public speaker and writer. My journey to healthcare began a little over 10 years ago. It was a regular summer day, July 6, 2004. I was coming home from swim practice and I was crossing a local intersection and I was struck on my driver's side door by a speeding dump truck, and the injuries were catastrophic. Heart went across my chest, shattered ribs, shattered pelvis, collapsed lungs. Pretty much every major organ was damaged. I was medevaced out from shock to the accident scene to shock trauma and underwent immediate surgery to fix the heart, the lungs, the internal organs. The kidneys and liver were lacerated. I lost my spleen, my gallbladder, lost about 60% of my blood, and was in a medically induced coma for 2 months, where I was pretty much brought back to life 8 times. My experiences in the hospital, my first real memory began, it could have been the first week, could have been the second week, could have been the second day being in the hospital, because I had a concussion at the accident scene. So the memory of past and present was kind of blurry. I couldn't tell what was day, what was night. I couldn't tell what day it was, when it was, how old I was. It was very bizarre to wake up to in that kind of environment. And I had to gain an understanding of my situation by my care providers. They would come in every day, same time. Actually, for me in ICU, it was every 15 minutes. And they would say, "Brian, you were in a car accident, a few broken bones, you'll be out of here in a few days." And after hearing that so many times throughout several days, several weeks, and then 2 months total, I realized it was much worse than broken bones. But I kind of gathered my understanding of what actually happened based on the CAT scans, the MRIs, the conversations in the hospital room, outside the hospital room, on the way to radiology in the operating room, and understood that I was a very sick patient. When I officially came out of the coma, it was a day-to-day process. It was baby steps. It was relearning how to eat, to chew ice, to drink water, to tie my shoes, to sit upright. It was pretty much being reborn in a lot of ways. And from ICU, I was in there for 2 months. Then I was at rehab for about a week, because that was pretty much trying to transition me from ICU to almost go into rehabilitation, which took eventually about 3 years for a full recovery. The main experiences that I had in the hospital that really inspired me were the connections that I made with my caregivers. Even when I couldn't talk, when I was comatose, I was medically induced in the coma. My care team, I had many members that were taking care of me, from the doctors and surgeons to the nurses to the specialists and so forth. They would come in every day and they would talk to me. They would get to know me. Most of my care team would. Those are the ones that really stood out to me. They're like my dream team members, my caregivers that really stood out to me. And they would just have that conversation. They would talk to me. They would make their presence known. They would get to know me. I couldn't respond back to them. To them, I was just a body on a hospital bed. But they went above and beyond that. I was a person to them. And that made a connection with me to realize that I may be weak right now. I may be medically induced in a coma. One day things could get better. And these people are giving me hope to believe that tomorrow might be a better day. The ones that really stood out to me were the ones that would walk into my room and they would look at the get well cards in the bulletin board next to my hospital bed. They would read my cards, they would look at my photos, they would get to know me, they would talk to my parents, my family, my friends. They made a connection, and they would come into my room and they would have that connection by just talking to me, talking about day-to-day things, about their lifestyles, about what they're gonna make for dinner that night. They would just talk to me. And that communication was so critical for me, because being in ICU and medically induced as a patient, I was very lonely. It was a very lonely experience to wake up to. I felt like I was in a mental prison in a lot of ways, because I was trapped in that locked-in state, but I was very coherent. Even though I was medically induced by all the heavy medication and paralysis medications and so forth, I was still very coherent in my situation and my surroundings. But the care team made me realize that I was much more than a body on a hospital bed. So it was my hope to become a healthcare advocate, to go back and be able to maybe give some hope, to give some inspiration, to give some insight in what's taking place in the hospital room, in the healthcare setting for other patients, other families. And as time went on, I realized that a lot of the conversations that I had, a lot of the presentations that I was giving, it was giving insight not just to the patients and their families, but to the caregivers as well, trying to improve care and improve the level of quality, level of patient safety, the patient experience, and so forth. The teamwork that I experienced in the hospital, it branched from my direct care nurses all the way up to the surgeons, to even the hospital administration, to the president, the CEO. We were there for quite a long time, so we became familiar with the entire healthcare setting in a lot of ways. And in that approach, that teamwork, that bond, it really helped us go through the recovery process. It really helped us understand that, wow, this is a team effort. This is not just Brian in there. He's the only one suffering on the hospital bed. there's a whole team of people that are believing in him, that are helping him recover, that are helping him get better. And I realized that in my darkest moments in life, when I was thinking about giving up and kind of saying, this is as far as I can go, I don't want to live in a nursing home or be in a vegetative state the rest of my life, I could not give up because these people were believing in me so much. They were taking care of me. They did everything that they could. And it became that family, that second family with a lot of my care staff. And I don't forget that. That's why I speak on behalf of healthcare, and I speak on behalf of these amazing men and women for choosing this path, for taking their time to go out there and take care of their patients and also their families. Because they're not just saving the family, they're saving the community, the individual, the identity, the dreams, the hopes for the future, everything. And I'm living proof of that. Like I say in the beginning, with the Dream Team members, the ones that really stood out to me were the ones that came into my room. They would talk to me, they would use my name, they would sit down next to me, they would get to know me. They weren't in there 15 seconds checking the vitals and so forth. They got to know me as a person, and as time went on, that team aspect, it kept me believing that tomorrow would be a better day and I could recover and live my dreams and so forth. But when you see that recovery process and you're a part of that and you're able to initiate that change, to initiate that level of improvement, it goes a long way and it works wonders for the patient, their family, and their overall lifestyle. I feel that with my experience and going through the recovery process and my years as a healthcare advocate, I've learned that going way back to when I was in room 19 in ICU, I remember the level of engagement and communication was critical to the overall treatment plan, but the care providers that provided the most engagement and sincerity and impact and overall impact with me were the ones that they came into my room and they treated the body first and then they healed me as a person. And that was my main thing, that I realized that I may have been a body on a hospital bed, but they treated me as a person. They took care of all the most important details as far as the recovery process, the medical procedures, the surgeries, everything up to date was fine. But then they didn't stop there. And I feel that's very important in healthcare, is to not just stop from where you're supposed to go with the medical aspect, but to go in there and also to heal the person, their identity, to show empathy, to show communication, to show compassion. And in a lot of ways, that's my background. And to see that come full circle, that's one of my biggest messages for improving the level of quality in healthcare.